In my last video, I mentioned that I was going to enter an AUD USD sell trade, and the setup actually triggered while I was recording. So this is the result of the trade. I'll just hop over to the chart, and so remember I showed you this red line where my entry point was, my entry price, and price was crossing it while I was recording in my last video. So after the video, I waited for price to retrace just a little so I could get a better price, and then I entered the sell trade. And remember, I said my entry was on this red line and my exit, my take profit, was on this red line. And I mentioned close out of that shouldn't be here. And I mentioned that my stop loss was at the top here, but I mentioned that I was okay with that because the win rate in this strategy trumps the risk to reward. Okay, so I entered that trade waiting for price to reach here. However, I mentioned that I usually hop in on a second trade with smaller risk when price hits a trend line of mine. Now, I was waiting for price to hit this trend line here. So I entered here and I was hoping price would actually retrace against me and hit this trend line here. Price came all the way here and didn't hit it, and then came back down, at which point I entered this second trade, because usually when price is going to hit this trend line, it goes there straight. So price didn't reach my trend line but started to reverse, so I entered the second trade, and price went a little bit further but did nothing, at which point I entered my third trade, which made up my full size, my full risk size. And price hovered a little and then came back down to my take profit here. However, that was the next day, the next morning. So take profit was hit here, which I sort of expected, because which is sort of the advantage of having your take profit closer than your stop loss. The downside to that is when you take a loss, your loss will usually be bigger than your take profit. However, the losses will come less often than if the take profit was bigger than the stop loss. It's basically picking what suits you and trading that style. So that's so all three trades closed for a profit here. One more thing, remember I mentioned that I usually move my stop loss to break even at 90% of take profit. Now, when price came here, down here, I hadn't reached 90% of my take profit yet, so I didn't move it to break even. And then if you see, price actually retraced back to my break even point. And then it was when price came here, somewhere here, so on this bar here, it was when price came somewhere here that I moved it to break even. But shortly after I moved it to break even, it hit my take profit anyway. I just wanted to show you this to demonstrate that a lot of the time price it just bounces around before it hits our take profit. So sometimes when we move our stop loss to break even early, we are taken out of the trade. But again, if that's what works for you psychologically, then keep doing that. But for me, this is what I do. And that's it.